Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show today. I'm really glad you could join us. So today we're going to be diving in and talking about a lot of topics related to business success with the foremost expert on this topic who works with a lot of clients helping them grow their businesses. So with us today is Latisha or Tish Styles. Now, Latisha, or I'll just start going by Tish. Tish is a sought-after millennial lifestyle and money expert helping clients take an existing skill and turn it into an online business. She's the founder of Creating Coins and president of Financial Success Media LLC. And after years of struggling to figure out the secret to making money, she started creating coins to bring to light what she finally discovered, that money is an idea and that action turns ideas into income. Through her signature training programs, Latisha helps coaches build an online presence and serves one clear purpose, helping them gain more clients. Her work has been featured in notable publications including Forbes, Fast Company, and Business Insider. Latisha, welcome. Thanks for coming in today.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited you could be here because when I look through, first of all, you have a ton of experience of helping people. And I get this question all the time, like, where do I start? Like, where can I get an idea to start a business? And the interesting thing is I've never had an answer. So I'm hoping to dive into that a little bit more. And with your knowledge of working with so many different businesses and coaches, there's just so many cool things that I think we could all benefit from.
Yeah, sure. And to answer that question, as far as kind of where you get started, I always say you want to find the intersection of three things, which is the thing that you're good at, the thing that you enjoy doing, and that thing that people will pay you for. And once you find that intersection of those three things, that's where you really have found essentially the sweet spot. Because a lot of times, there's things that we're good at, but it's not necessarily what we would enjoy doing every day, day in, day out. There's things that we're good at, but it's not necessarily something that people would pay us for, or we might not even enjoy it. And then there's lots of things that you can do that there's just not a market for. So once you find the intersection of those three things, that's really where you found your sweet spot. And that's where I recommend for my clients where they start.
Well, where do you find that they are able to do this self-evaluation to figure out things that they're really good at? Because I talk to a lot of budding entrepreneurs that seems like they haven't even really honed in on their own strengths.
Yeah, honestly, what I feel like is that it takes some time to just kind of sit quietly and kind of think it through. Sometimes it's a matter of you just evaluating your own personal strengths. Sometimes it's a matter of you asking friends, family, people who know you, even people who are kind of acquaintances that may not know you that well. Ask them, hey, what do you think I'm good at? What do you, what are some of the things that you think of when you think of me? And then it's also a matter of thinking about, okay, what do people come to you for? What are people constantly asking you questions about? Because either you're always talking about it or they find that they're just coming to you for help for that thing. And then a formalized way of doing this, and this is something that I did because even though I took all of those steps, it was still a little bit difficult for me to figure it out. And I ended up taking the Gallup Strengths Finder exam. And I think I took the version online. It was 10 or 20 bucks. And it asked me several questions, asking me about, personality traits and all these different questions made me realize that I was really good at strategy. And that's pretty abstract. So it's not something that I could walk up to someone and say, hey, what do you think I'm good at? And they're going to say, well, you're really good at seeing the start to finish and helping someone go from start to finish. So that exam was what helped me figure out what my unique skill was. And that's essentially what started my business. I started helping business owners to kind of figure out that start to finish strategy. And I kind of took everything from there.
And I love that. And I never even heard of this before. And I'm going to actually get off this and go do that. Not right now. I'm not going to leave you. Later, I am going to go do that because I think it's interesting because I do find that a lot of people don't know what their own strength is. And what you just gave was a perfect example of that. Nobody would tell you that that's your strength, but knowing that that's your strength immediately go put you into coaching just because you can work with other business owners to help them strategize a solution. But how do you then know if it's something that people will pay you for? Because I see people that get so deep into creating a product or service or company, and then they roll something out and realize like that people don't even want what they have. So is there a way to test the waters and see if people may buy what you have without getting in so deep with money and time with creating something?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just kind of talk a little bit about my process, because once I figured it out, I knew that I wanted to create some sort of coaching or consulting program. And I went to a friend of mine who was kind of working on, she was kind of starting her business and working on some things. And I said, hey, I'd love to offer my services to you for free. And I'm in the process of trying to figure out if this is something that I want to do, or if it's something that has value. And I won't charge you anything, but I'd love to, if we work together and things go well, I'd love to get a testimonial from you. We worked together for 8 weeks. Things went really well for her, and she gave me a testimonial. And before I created anything, any type of courses or outlined any sort of, what I was going to do for each client, or even put up a website for it, I just started sharing that testimonial. And I said, hey, if you're a business owner and you're looking for results like this, I can't guarantee them, but I'd love to work with you. I've got an 8-week program. Just give me a call. And I started getting people interested. And then I booked my next 3 clients who were interested in that strategy. And things kind of took off from there. So what I would recommend for any business owner or someone who's like trying to figure out, hey, will people actually pay me for this thing, is work with that one client. Make sure it's something that you're still interested in, that you can kind of see a way clear that this is something that's working well and it's vibing. And then from there, take that testimonial and say, hey, I'm looking for additional clients, start working with a couple people paid. And you'll know right away once you have that testimonial if people are interested in continuing to work with you. And obviously this is more specific to like service-based. So someone who's doing some sort of coaching or consulting.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a brilliant way to do it, because then you're not spending all this time, energy, and money. And then it gets you excited because you start seeing the reaction before you even roll these things out.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed is that you have a lot of people that, let's say a plumber, right? There's a lot of people that are good plumbers, but are horrible business owners. But
Yeah.
a lot of them think that because they're a good plumber, they could become a good entrepreneur. So do you find that there are qualities that somebody has that you are pretty good indicators of becoming a successful entrepreneur, and other qualities where maybe somebody should maybe not even consider it?
Yeah, I would say 2 main qualities, which is being stubborn, and on the positive side, it's called perseverance. And then the second quality is being humble. And that's also equated to being willing to ask for help. So when entrepreneurship is not easy, but when you're essentially too stubborn to give up, then you have that perseverance and you're willing to kind of make it through those hard points. But you can only do that when it's matched with the other side, which is being humble, being willing to ask for help. You can't do everything. You won't have all of the qualities that you need. And that's the great thing, once again, about the that StrengthsFinder exam, is that it'll tell you kind of like your top 5 areas that you're really good at. For example, I'm really good at strategy, but I'm also good at like vision and like that long range planning. And sometimes I have my head in the clouds. So I need someone who's more grounded, someone who can say, okay, well, those are great ideas, but now this is what we need to do in order to implement them. And I need you to stick with this until we can work on and finish implementing this. And fortunately, I have someone like that for me to help me with that area of my business. So I will say those 2 things: being willing to persevere, and also being willing to get help for the areas where you're not as strong.
Very good advice. And that's what I found on my journey too. I've owned 3 businesses. The first one failed as a mortgage business in the mortgage crisis. Second one did okay. This one we've really taken off because I have a partner and she is good at all the stuff I'm bad at, and I'm good at all the stuff she's bad at, and it just works perfectly. And so when you find that kind of synergy, it's fantastic because you have immediately one or sometimes multiple people around you that can kind of make up for your weaknesses, and then that really lets you hone in on your strengths and use those to drive the growth in the business.
Yep, absolutely.
So how do the next question I really wanted to think about was you have this idea. So you've come in, you've kind of figured out these 3 things, right? What you're good at, what you enjoy, what people will pay for, what you think people will pay for. What's the next step? How do you go from turning a concept or ideas into an actual product or service or income? A lot of people get lost in that transition.
Yeah, sure. So that next step I would say is kind of getting that first testimonial. So working with that one client, getting that first testimonial. And then from there, essentially it's putting the marketing plan in place, figuring out how you're going to acquire clients, figuring out who that ideal client is. I say work with someone who can help you with that marketing, with that branding aspect of your business, because there's a lot of competition out there. So you've got to be really specific on who it is that you're looking for. So what types of clients that you want. You've got to be really specific about that. You also have to be really specific about your unique selling proposition. And one mentor that I really like, his name's Jay Abraham. He's got a really good book called Getting Everything You Can Out of All You Got, I think something like that. And he kind of takes you through that process of figuring out your unique selling proposition, figuring out who it is you're going after, asking some really tough questions so that you can realize, like, this is what I need to put in place in order to really have a business. And I think that's essentially the next step, is getting help in that area of marketing so that you can make it a sustainable business once you've validated the idea and you know that this is something that people pay for, that they're interested in, that I'm really good at it. And the next step essentially is getting that marketing in place.
So do you read a lot?
I do, yeah.
So do you recommend that and find that a lot of your successful clients are doing the same thing?
By reading a lot?
Well, I mean, it seems like you came in, found an idea, and now you have all this information and you're really knowledgeable about it. But I would imagine in the beginning, you probably relied on some way to get that training and information. And so your clients, so how are they getting the information to get trained on what they're going to sell so they can proficiently get out there and represent their product and service?
Okay, great question. So I would say, obviously, reading, the number one thing. The way that I've been able to do it is looking for people who are essentially already where I want to be and who are in that marketplace. So when I knew that I wanted to go into coaching and consulting, I started looking for coaching and consulting mentors. That was one of the ways that I found Jay Abraham. And so whatever industry you're in, look to see who those people are that are already there. Then you can determine, do they have books and guides that you can read? Do they have courses potentially that you can take, something that's self-paced so you can kind of learn as you go? Do they offer some sort of live event or some sort of coaching or even done-for-you consulting services that you can get help with? And I think it's a progression of not just constantly consuming information, but it's a progression of figuring out what are the things that you need first, then how to put those pieces in place, whether it's mentors, whether it's courses, whether it's done-for-you services. You've got to start kind of putting those pieces in place. And obviously the first step is getting the information first so you know what to look for. But I try not to get stuck too much in like information gathering mode, because I'm also the type of person where I can do a lot of information gathering, and it a little bit prevents me from taking the action that I want to take. So I have something I call like a low information diet. Basically what I do is, if there's a specific topic that I want to learn more on, I pretty much go all out on learning that topic and doing as much research as possible. And then at some point I've got to shut everything else out, and even shut out taking on more information from that one topic, and essentially go on a low information diet where I'm no longer paying attention to those ads that come by that say, hey, do you want to learn this new thing? Or no longer taking in more information on the thing, even the thing that I was researching, and really just focusing on implementing. And that's one of the things I feel like is most important. Once you do get the information that you need, it's time to start taking action and start implementing.
Awesome. I love your advice about getting a testimonial, doing it for free, and then using it. But what are some other ways to go from being unknown to actually being able to get paid?
Yeah. Referrals. Referrals are great if you kind of have a warm network already. And essentially, if you can start off with something that you're already experienced in. So for example, one of my clients, she's an OBGYN by trade. She started mentoring pre-med students. And she's able to reach out to her warm network of other doctors to say, hey, if you know of anyone in your network who's a pre-med student, I'm starting to mentor pre-med students. And so it's a warm referral is a lot stronger than, kind of trying to do some sort of ads or even writing a blog and having someone come to you as a cold traffic or something like that. Going to, I want to say networking events, but more that are centered around something specific. So what I'm thinking of is I'm a member of NAWBO, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners. And it's not necessarily a referral network, but being a member of NAWBO means that I can connect with other women who get to know me. And then it makes it that much easier when I go to the events and I chat with other people and I say, this is what I do. Because they know me, it's much easier for them to potentially refer business to me. So look for industry organizations, look for, events, even at the Chamber of Commerce, things where you can kind of get your name out there and start making connections with people who can potentially refer potential clients to you.
Another problem I see a lot of people that are getting started face is just reputation. I mean, online, you have to have a pretty good reputation. If you're just getting started, you don't have that. So I love the idea of getting some testimonials and giving a service for free. I think that's a good way in. How else can you gain credibility as a new entrepreneur?
That's a great question. When I first started, I started out as a blogger, personal finance blogger. Bloggers are not necessarily, well, at least when I started, blogging was still one of those things that wasn't considered a profession. And it's come a long way in 8 years. But my main fear was that I didn't have the credibility that I needed in order to speak about my topic. And so I had to learn personally how to build my own credibility and how to build my own platform in that topic. And for anyone who's starting a new business, one of the best ways to build your credibility is to not only be knowledgeable about your topic, but demonstrate that you are knowledgeable. And one of the best ways to do that is by creating a few concentrated pillar pieces of content. And the reason that I say concentrated and emphasis on concentrated pillar pieces of content is because I don't want to put the idea out there that you've got to, blog, create video, podcast. It's really about creating anywhere from 3 to 4 pillar pieces of content where you can demonstrate your knowledge. And that can be in any medium you'd like. It can be in a blog, it can be in a podcast, it can be in video. And then from there, as long as you have a professional web presence, and because people they're going to look you up online, as long as you have a professional web presence, when someone goes to look you up online, they're going to find those targeted pieces of content and they're going to say, wow, she really knows what she's talking about, or he really knows what he's talking about. That would be step 1. Step 2 would be to leverage that content, take that content and start getting it out to a wider audience. I like using a service. It's called Help a Reporter Out. And that service is journalists are looking for sources. You get an email every day, sometimes 3 times a day, and you get certain potential pitches. So you get journalists that are saying, hey, we're looking for an expert in this topic, or we're looking for someone in this other topic. And when you can quickly respond and say, hey, I can respond to this, give them a couple sentences. And then if you've got that pillar piece of content and you're really targeted about the types of press hits that you're going for, you can literally just link to that piece of content and say, I've written a lot more about it here. Sometimes the journalist will respond back to you, but more often than not, you won't hear anything back from them. And suddenly, if you've got an alert set up for your name, suddenly you'll see this alert pop up with your name. You'll be quoted, you'll be cited, and then sometimes they'll even include a link to that resource that you shared with them. That was how I got featured on MTV.com and featured on several different places. I just responded. I said, hey, I've got a video about this. They included my video, linked back to me. And that was another way that I was able to build that credibility when I first got started.
I'm taking notes. I like that. We use Haro, but we don't actually include the video. When we send in the link, we have a bunch of videos saying it's a great idea.
Yeah.
What about failing? I mean, look, you've been where I've been. I mean, I see so many people get into business and then they have these little failures and then they're like, pfft, and they give up. So how does somebody go about turning these failures as learning lessons to then succeed?
I guess the first thing is understanding that there will be failures and reframing the failure instead of as it's the end of everything, as just it's another learning opportunity and it's just another lesson. my personal story of failure, and there are several, but the one that I always include in my story, because it's part of my journey now, is I did start out as a personal finance blogger, and one of my main goals was to be able to go full time with my business, and I wanted to be able to quit my job. And once I got to the point where I thought I was making good enough money and I had a couple months of savings built up, I did quit my job, but I couldn't make it work. Like, I didn't have enough coming in. I had one of the programs that I was working with, they closed down, and I just couldn't figure out how to like make that work financially. And I ended up having to go back to a full-time job. And I felt like a failure because I had been, talking about and teaching for people like, hey, you can do what you love, and then eventually you'll be able to leave your job, and I'm going to do it as well. And it was like, I couldn't figure out how to kind of reconcile that in my head. And after a couple days in that full-time job, I realized that if I see it as a failure, then I'll quit and I won't keep trying, and then it really will be a failure. But if I instead reframe it as a learning opportunity, then it's not over yet, and I can still keep going after what I want. And so I just reframed it in my mind. I viewed it as, hey, this is just a stepping stone. I told myself this is going to be an amazing part of your story. You're going to be able to quit this job. You're going to start making full-time income. You're going to be able to work for yourself. And just a few months into working that job, I saw a way clear to actually create the full-time income that I wanted, which is when I discovered that I've got to offer something that I'm good at, something that people will pay for, and something that I enjoy doing. And I was able to leave that full-time job. I've been self-employed for 3 years now, 3+ years now. And that part of my story is, or could have been, a failure, but it was something that I was able to reframe. And because I was just stubborn enough to keep going, I was able to turn it into a success. So failure is going to come, but it's about reframing it and thinking of it as, okay, this is just a part of the journey. And as long as I learn the lesson that I need to learn, I can keep going. For me, the lesson that I needed to learn was that I needed a sustainable way to bring in revenue. I needed to not rely on other sources like affiliate marketing and selling someone else's products and services. I needed to be able to sell my own services, and I needed to focus instead of trying to do all the different things that were coming by. I needed to really focus on what my unique skill was. And so once I learned those lessons, that's when I was able to turn that failure around and kind of keep going.
I've never heard it presented that way, and I love it, because it's like, look, if I quit, failure would be when I quit and stop. I ain't quitting and stopping. So because I didn't quit and stop, then it's not a failure. Then it's a learning experience. That was just brilliant explanation. And when you get to where you are and you figure these things out, you figure out what you're going to sell, and you develop a basic strategy, how do you go get customers? Because you're talking about developing a marketing plan, but that's pretty tough to do when you don't have money. And that's exactly what we see a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. They've got an idea, they got a concept, they think they've got a product, they've maybe done some of these things, tested it, got it out there. But now, like, how do they get it out to the masses without really having the money to be able to do so?
You have to have some sort of funding. There are organic ways for you to get clients. You can, the things that I've mentioned, right? Networking, referrals, reaching out to your warm network. But that's not the sustainable way to stay in business, because you can't control that. You can't say that I'm going to, reach out to 20 people today and 20 people are going to get back to me. However, when you create a system that is essentially part of a funnel, right? Like a sales process, then you can say, I'm going to spend this much money. When I spend this much money, I know for a fact that this percentage of people will get back to me. I can close this percentage of people. So that's part of that marketing funnel, that marketing process, is understanding, if I put $1 in, how much am I going to get back out? In order to put something like that in place, you've got to come to the mindset that it's going to require funding. And that funding can be from your current 9-to-5 job. If you're still working 9 to 5 and you're trying to transition, that funding can be from personal credit. So you can use your personal credit score in order to, open a business line of credit or something like that. It can be from friends or family. I actually created a whole list of ways to get funding, reaching out to people who owe you money and actually, calling those loans due.
I like that one.
There's so many different funding sources when you get resourceful, but it takes money in order to create a sustainable process to bring clients in. And that's unfortunately, that's just the nuts and bolts of it.
What about skills that you need to develop in due time to continue to grow the business successfully? Because that's what it comes down to. I mean, what I've learned is when you start a business, you don't have a fraction of what you need. And I think we all have this fake it till we make it. We sometimes feel like frauds because we don't know what we're doing. We're learning as we go. So what kind of skills do you see need to be developed for the business to really have a chance of successfully growing?
I will say the number one skill is exercising the muscle that is your mind. The entrepreneur is the one who is pushing the business forward. And when your mindset is strong, you can tackle any obstacle that comes at you, because you can always hire out for the things that you're not good at, but you can't hire out that mindset. And one of the people that I follow who I really appreciate the stuff that he puts out there is Tony Robbins. And I was at a conference last year, and he talked about the entrepreneur will be the bottleneck for the business if the entrepreneur doesn't work on their mindset. Like I said, you can hire out for any number of areas for the business, but you can't hire out that mindset. And what I mean by mindset is by understanding what you personally are good at, what your weak areas are, being humble enough to hire out for the areas that you're not good at, understanding that you've got to show up regardless of whether you feel good or don't feel good. You still have to be there. You still have to, all eyes are on you. You've got to keep things going, because if you stop, the business stops. And understanding that, and for me personally, working on my mindset, that's the number one thing that I've worked on and developed over the past couple of years that's allowed me to be more successful than when I first quit my job that first time around. It really was me deciding that this was very important to me. And so I was going to develop myself as a person, as a human being, as an entrepreneur. And it all came down to me working on my mindset.
So a lot of it's personal development to get your mind right. That's interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, what about finding, and you mentioned this earlier, what steps does somebody take to go about figuring out who their ideal client really is, who they really should be going after? Because I see so many people going after the wrong people, and then they have all these problems as a result, or they just want to went after the right person to begin with. They've been fine, but they don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I feel like that is sort of an organic process. Personally, when I started out, I was going after business owners, and I said, I'm helping business owners with strategy. And then I started to narrow down more into coaches, narrowing down even more into helping people who have a passion and have a transformational process. And that came from me working with different clients and seeing what I specifically liked, didn't like, what I enjoyed the most. And it was a little bit more of an organic process. I will say that if you can find pockets of consumers or pockets of clients, it's going to make your business that much easier. So for example, I know specifically if I want to reach coaches, I can go to International Coaching Federation, and they specifically train coaches. So I can go there and I can find lots of coaches and people who might need my marketing services, since I work with coaches. So if you can get specific about what's the organizations that they're a part of, not only just demographics, like who that person is and what age they are and what type of car they drive or whatever, but especially if you're doing business to business, if you can really zero in on what organizations are they a part of, what annual revenue do they have as a business owner, and thinking of those individual things, it makes it that much easier to go after them. Also, getting really specific on that problem that they have that you are uniquely qualified to solve. When you get really clear on that problem, you become the go-to person. And if you can get really clear on that problem in a specific industry, then they will all refer their friends to you. And if you can get that, that's where you essentially have kind of hit a gold mine.
When you have done this and you niche down like you're describing and say, here's the niche I'm going to go after, do you find it's then easier to attract the ideal customer because you could design languaging and stuff that speaks just to that person?
Absolutely, absolutely. So for example, if I'm looking for financial coaches in particular, I can create an ad or marketing or whatnot, and I can say, did you know that most financial coaches don't know this? I worked with financial coaches and this is exactly what we do. And then we're able to do X, Y, and Z and get them X, Y, Z results. Someone who's looking at that, they are a financial coach. They're thinking, wow, this is specifically for me. Versus if I say, hey, all coaches, did you know that we're able to do this, blah, blah, blah. Then they're thinking, well, does it work for me? I kind of do this, or maybe I don't identify as a coach or whatever. When you get really, really specific, it makes it that much easier to have a clear marketing message. All the noise that's out there today, it's so important to clearly define who you're going after and then speak directly to them.
And, you talked a little bit earlier about marketing and, you can't rely on undependable sources like referrals to scale and things like that. And we also talked about how to get started with the paid side of things. But, the question I have is that how do you get you mentioned a sales funnel. So like I said, I guess let's go back there. Should people, when they do have some money to start investing into ads and they do have an idea of who this target audience is, should they just start running ads? Should they build a funnel first? What is a funnel? How does that work? Give me some insight on what you've seen work successfully there.
Yeah. So to answer the first question, should they run ads first? The answer to that is no. So running ads and driving traffic, I equate that to like throwing gasoline on a fire. But if you don't have a fire burning first, you're just pouring gas on dirt and there's nothing that's going to happen. So we kind of set the ads aside first and we build that fire first. We build that funnel. And the funnel is, simple process of someone getting to know you, getting to like you, trusting you, and then ultimately making a purchase. I like to start the beginning of the funnel is them getting to know you. That's the stuff that most people are familiar with. That's going to networking events, talking to people, posting on, social media, creating content, blog posts. That's the getting to know you part. And people are really good at that, but then they have a harder time when it's time to come to that middle of the funnel, which is them getting to like you. The getting to like you part is you kind of bringing them in, maybe capturing their email address in exchange for something valuable, which could be a training, it could be a free ebook, it could be, any number of free items that are viewed as highly valuable. Then when that person gets that value from you, now they're like, oh, I like this person because I've received something, in exchange for, and all I had to give them was my email address, or all I had to do was comment on this post, right? And then the final part of the funnel is them getting to trust you. They trust you when they realize that you can actually solve their problem. And the way that you do this is by continuing to share content about testimonials, case studies, people that have worked with you in the past, specifically speaking to their pain points, their desires, their fears, frustrations, their doubts, like being able to explain their problem to them better than they can explain it themselves. That's when they trust you. They feel like you're going to take a consultative approach in order to help them. And then that's when they become a buyer. So what this looks like from like a technical standpoint, because it's important to kind of understand the creative side of it first. What it looks like from a technical standpoint is, like I said, the getting to know you phase is the content, posting on Facebook and meeting people or whatnot. The getting to like you phase is creating a landing page, asking them for their email address and exchanging a training or PDF. And then the getting to trust you part is the email follow-up and anything else that you have in place where you are now having that conversation with them in their inbox. If you got, text message and you can text them and say, hey, I'm doing a training. If you are doing live workshops and they're coming into the live workshop, that's essentially how we build that. Your sales funnel can be as long or as short as you like. I prefer a short sales funnel. So my know, like, and trust sales funnel looks like I create content on Facebook. I have Facebook groups. I have YouTube videos. And then the like part is I share a training in exchange for an email address. And then the trust part is I'm continuing to send those follow-up emails. So as soon as they have the opportunity to watch that training, at that point, they're like, wow, like she just blew my mind with all this value. And now I think I want to work with her, but let me see what else she's got. They get the email follow-up sequence. And then, from there, it's like, okay, now I'm ready to get started. So that's essentially what the sales funnel looks like. Once you have that in place, and you don't need to create 15 different sales funnels, you can have one good sales funnel in place. Once you have that in place, then you can start driving traffic to that sales funnel. I like using Facebook ads, starting to learn YouTube ads as well. But for right now, I'm really good at Facebook ads, starting to drive traffic through Facebook ads. People come in, they sign up, and then from there, it's just a matter of looking at the numbers. If you want phone calls, how many phone calls are you getting booked based on how much you're spending? On average, like $100 to $200 per phone call should help you to not only break even, but earn enough so that the ads make sense. And then for something else, if you're selling like a course or training or something like that, then the numbers are going to be a little bit different, but you're looking for like certain click-through rates and cost per click. And I won't get too much in the weeds, but once you have your funnel, at that point, it's really just a numbers game to try to figure out, okay, what makes this profitable.
Any tools that help that you've seen along the way that help with the acquisition of new prospects and then the conversion of those into sales?
Yeah, sure. So one of my favorite tools is a sales funnel builder. It's called ClickFunnels. They also have, they allow you to create landing pages. You can accept payments. You can create a member area if you've got some sort of training or a video series that you want to deliver. So that's one tool that I really like, and that essentially builds out all of my sales funnels that I have. And then as far as for webinars, I like using, actually do a lot of my webinars on Facebook Live. I have used Zoom in the past, and also have done some webinars on YouTube Live. Webinars, just the video training or video presentation.
It's awesome. What about let's say you hit the success. I mean, you start attaining a lot of clients. How do you handle volume then? I mean, what do you do when you're a one-man show and then all of a sudden you start to get all these clients? How do you start scaling from there to have the ability to start handling a lot of clients instead of just a few?
So the first thing that I would do is transition from one-on-one coaching into a group coaching model. In a group coaching model, you have more of a standardized process, and that standardized process allows you to bring more people in at once. And then you can kind of create a VIP option, or you can, add some individual items there. But from that essentially will help you reclaim your time and get your time back. And then if you would like to continue building out a full service coaching business, it's a matter of thinking about hiring additional coaches, hiring sales staff, and starting to hire out individuals who can do those different jobs. For me, I decided to go the course and training route instead of building a large coaching business. And so for me, my leverage is creating a course that is that same standardized process, where I essentially show up for the training calls, the group coaching portion of it. And then my clients can go through that course. I can show up for the group coaching part of it, and I can bring as many people through that process as I'd like. And that's essentially the two options for scaling, either continuing to hire a team, or creating a more hands-off, but still transformational course type process.
That's brilliant. What of anything that you think that people are doing in this process? What are the biggest mistakes that people make where they're failing in this whole process, from thinking of an idea to starting a business? I mean, what are the biggest things you're like just commonly see that people just completely mess up?
First thing is expecting it to work overnight. And by overnight, I mean within the first month or 3 months or even first year, expecting things to just take off, and you're going to be the only person who started it and it just like magically worked overnight. Unfortunately, I see a lot of marketing where it's like, hey, I'm going to help you do this, I'm going to help you do this, and they make it feel like it's going to be overnight. So I think there's a little bit of an issue on both sides when it comes to that. But it's going to take some time to get everything into place, and there's going to be some failures along the way. So I feel like one of the the biggest things that trips people up is not setting their expectations properly. And then the second thing that I feel like kind of trips people up where they're not really realizing what goes into everything is not really putting that team into place. Understanding that you will need a mentor, someone to help you for the mindset area of things. And then you will need to be able to kind of hire out in those other areas, and understanding that it's going to take some funding in order to do that. So I feel like that's probably the main two places where people kind of get tripped up or don't progress as quickly as they could, because they don't have the proper expectations and they're not willing to actually reach out and get help.
Anything, any parting thoughts? You're brilliant. I mean, honestly, this has been a brilliant interview. I don't think I've done an interview where there's so much actionable information, and it's been so cool talking to you, because like we think so much alike. Like, you're hitting on all the things that I think are the most important things for business. But did I leave anything out? Is there any parting thoughts that you have before we wrap up on things that maybe I didn't ask that I should have asked?
Yeah, I will say the one thing that has helped me a lot is to look at all of the rules, look at all of the shoulds and shouldn'ts and all of those things, and put them aside for a second and really think about what is the business that you want to grow and you want to create. It's really easy to fall into the comparison trap, where you're looking at what other people are doing or what they have and think, oh, I need to do this thing, or I need to follow that shiny object, and really self-reflect and think, like, do I want the business that does this, or do I want the business that does that? And I think when you really take a moment to self-reflect and think about what you actually want, it's going to help you stay that much more clear onto the path that you need to be on to create the success you want. If you're looking at someone else's success or comparing yourself, it's going to pull you off track. And I say this, I speak from experience. It's going to pull you off track, because now you're thinking, well, if I just do that thing that they did, I can be successful there, instead of focusing on what it is that you actually want. Understand it's going to take some time to get there, but if you start comparing yourself or looking at other people or trying to do something that's just not in alignment with what is right for you, it's just going to slow your success down that much more. So if there were any parting thoughts or encouragements that I could leave with your audience, it would be to self-reflect, focus on what it is you want, don't compare yourself, and continue moving forward.
I got to tell you, this has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
So where should everybody go to learn more?
Yeah, sure. So you can go to latishastyles.com, LATISHASTYLES.com. That's where you'll find everything. I'm most active on Facebook and also active on Instagram as well. I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff on Instagram. And all of the information on how to get my social profiles and all of that is on my website. So you can just go to latishastyles.com, and that has everything.
So, and thanks again. You've been an amazing guest. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
So everybody watching, everybody listening, wow, that's a lot of really great information. And my advice is, first of all, I got to tell you, if I was starting a business, I'd probably listen to this 3, 4, 5 times, because honestly, she just outlined step by step by step the most important things you literally have to think about, from inception of a concept all the way through to growing the business successfully, in one of the most brilliant ways I've ever heard it laid out. So make sure you go to latishastyles.com. That's LATISHA, Styles, STYLES.com. Her website has so much great information, content, as well as like a whole page of just resources and tools that she recommends, many of which are the same ones that we use. And then there's a really obvious place where you can access all of her social media links. And then when you go to her social channels, there's like a ton more information as well. So if you want to dive deeper into all these concepts that we talked about, which, by the way, you absolutely should, because these are the most important things: client acquisition, finding the right customer, setting up sales funnels, how to market, when to market, how to find the right idea, test the idea. This is literally business 101 that you need to know. Then make sure you go to our website, check out these resources, check out the information here, and go to the social channels where there's even more information. So again, that's latishastyles.com, latishastyles.com, and I'll make sure that that link is in our show resources page page so everybody can go and check it out. So make sure that you go to latishastyles.com to learn more about exactly what you need to do to grow your business. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.